She had worked in restaurants for years, always moving quietly, always keeping her head down. Today should have been no different, but as she wiped the tables and smiled politely, a wealthy woman approached, dripping with arrogance, her eyes scanning like she owned the world. A single insult tore through the calm of the room, sharp and humiliating. Everyone froze. But what happened next no one saw coming, because the person standing behind the counter wasn't just another employee. She held a secret that would stop the richest woman in her tracks. Who could have imagined the power hiding in plain sight? It was a busy Friday evening, the kind that made the fluorescent lights in the restaurant feel harsher than usual. Jasmine had worked here for 3 years, serving tables with a quiet smile and a professionalism that went unnoticed by most, but she didn't mind. This job wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills and gave her a sense of independence she cherished. Outside, the city buzzed with luxury cars and hurried footsteps. A world that often seemed far removed from her own. Tonight, though, something felt different. The air carried an edge she couldn't quite place. As she arranged the silverware and wiped down the counters, she noticed a woman enter with an air of entitlement so thick it made the room feel smaller. Jasmine instinctively straightened her back, bracing herself. She had learned to navigate difficult customers, to ignore sneers and sharp words. But there was something in this woman's gaze that hinted this wouldn't be like any other evening. Something was about to happen. Something that would challenge the quiet dignity Jasmine had carried for years. Jasmine greeted the woman with her usual calm smile, but it was met with a cold, dismissive glare. The woman's voice cut through the soft hum of the restaurant like a knife, words meant to belittle, sharp and deliberate, aimed directly at Jasmine's uniform, her skin, her very presence. She could feel the eyes of other patrons on her, some awkward, some sympathetic, but mostly avoiding the confrontation altogether. Every word from the wealthy woman made her chest tighten, her hands shake ever so slightly as she carried plates from table to table. She had endured rude customers before, but there was a different weight to this, a malice that seemed personal. Yet Jasmine did what she had always done. She swallowed the lump in her throat, kept her voice steady, kept moving, hoping the moment would pass. Then it escalated. The woman leaned closer, her sneer widening, mocking Jasmine's accent, her manners, even her attempt at politeness. Whispers began to ripple across the room. Some diners looked away, unwilling to witness the humiliation, while others glanced with barely concealed curiosity, hungry for drama. Jasmine felt every eye as a spotlight, exposing her vulnerability. Anger and fear tangled inside her, but she held herself upright. She would not give the satisfaction of breaking. Not here, not now. The tension ratcheted higher when the woman's gaze swept past Jasmine and landed on the corner where a man in a tailored suit had been observing silently. Jasmine didn't recognize him immediately, but something in the woman's posture changed. Her arrogance wavered, her words faltered for just a heartbeat. That pause was enough. It was subtle, but Jasmine sensed a shift, a silent challenge that the room hadn't seen coming. She continued her work, each movement precise, controlled, but her mind raced. Who was that man? Why had the woman's confidence cracked so suddenly? The whispers grew louder, like a tide rising around her. The wealthy woman's voice returned, sharper, more frantic now, attempting to reassert dominance, but the uncertainty was visible. She was no longer fully in control. Every second dragged, yet the atmosphere was electric, as if the restaurant itself was holding its breath. Jasmine set down a plate and straightened, feeling a surge of quiet determination. She had endured insults, slights, and dismissive glances her entire life, but this evening carried the weight of something bigger, something that could change the dynamics in this room forever. Her eyes flicked to the man again. Now she recognized him, the owner of the restaurant, and a chill ran down her spine. The realization was almost imperceptible to the patrons, but to Jasmine, it was everything. Would the woman regain her composure, or would this secret unravel the power she had wielded so carelessly? The tension hung thick in the air, and every heartbeat seemed to echo the question: what would happen when privilege met truth? The restaurant seemed to hold its breath. Jasmine's hands were steady, her voice calm, but inside, her heart pounded like a drum. The wealthy woman's sneer faltered completely when the man in the suit stepped forward. Silence swallowed the room as all eyes shifted toward him. He didn't need to speak at first. The weight of his presence alone was enough. Jasmine finally saw it clearly. This was no ordinary man. He was the owner, the person who had built this establishment from the ground up, and he was watching her. The woman's face drained of color. Her words, once sharp and cutting, stumbled and fell flat. She opened her mouth, tried to recover, to assert her superiority, but the authority in the man's gaze silenced her. The contrast was stark, years of entitlement against decades of hard work and quiet dignity. Jasmine felt a surge of vindication, not from revenge, but from recognition. The humiliation she had endured in front of strangers now hung in the air, powerless against the truth. Every patron in the restaurant felt it, the shift, the unspoken acknowledgement that privilege and arrogance could not dictate reality forever. Then, the woman finally spoke, her voice a fragile whisper, her anger, her entitlement, her pride, all dissolved into disbelief. Jasmine realized, in that moment, that the injustice she had faced was only temporary. The quiet strength she had carried for years had led her to this turning point. The man nodded at Jasmine, a subtle gesture, but it was enough to make her chest swell with relief and quiet triumph. She had endured, she had persisted, and finally, the world around her had recognized her worth. And as the wealthy woman stepped back, speechless and defeated, the room seemed to ask the question out loud: how long can arrogance survive when confronted by truth? The tension in the restaurant slowly faded, replaced by a quiet hum of realization. The wealthy woman left, humiliated and speechless, her arrogance shattered in front of everyone. Jasmine stood behind the counter, her hands still, her chest heavy with relief and a deep, quiet pride. She had survived the insult, endured the judgment, and witnessed a moment where truth and integrity overcame entitlement. For the first time in that restaurant, her presence was fully seen, not as a shadow or a service worker, but as a person deserving of respect. The incident lingered in her mind long after the doors closed. It wasn't just about one wealthy woman or one insult, it was a reflection of a society where subtle and overt racism persists every day. Jasmine realized how often people like her navigate spaces carefully, hiding their fear, swallowing their pain, and still performing with dignity. And yet, moments like this showed that resilience, honesty, and the quiet assertion of one's worth could make the invisible visible, and injustice undeniable. She left work that night changed, not because she had been saved, but because she had endured, and the world around her had to acknowledge it. Her story was a reminder that courage doesn't always roar, and justice doesn't always need confrontation. Sometimes it arrives quietly, in recognition, in the presence of those willing to see the truth. And as she walked home, the question stayed with her. And with all of us, how many moments like this happen every day, unseen and unrecorded, where dignity and worth are tested against prejudice? How long will the world allow silence to protect arrogance? Jasmine's experience was one story among millions, a testament to resilience, a call to witness, to act, and to demand that respect and justice are not privileges, they are rights.